Hey guys, welcome to Little Blackbird 91. Yes, we're giving you guys a debrief of the latest, interviews that we've had with both with Juan and Karla. Listen, I ain't gonna lie to you. I don't have the energy to tussle with y'all today. Okay, I don't have it. I don't have it. We got an hour maximum. Okay, because that's all I can do with y'all. I'm gonna be asleep by the time the hour counts to the end. But listen, we're gonna talk about the fact that both interviews I think were great successes in terms of getting their story out, getting their thoughts, getting their different viewpoints. I think there were different ideas that were placed on the show. I think it was, and it was powerful to get to see. To see these stories unfold. I think when you ask questions, you get to see how people can answer things and how they view things from their perspective. And I think for me personally, it was also interesting because obviously I wanted to hear what Juan was got to say versus what Carla's got to say. And to be honest, has my opinion changed much? Slightly. Sorry, my alarm has slightly changed, yes, in terms of I think more questions I would ask for Juan. That's why I'd have more questions to find out a bit more. But also at the same time, there the issues around their relationship, like I said from the very beginning, it was confirmed that he did let her know they weren't attracted. So actually, from the very beginning, he didn't cheat her of anything because, like he said, he told her he was not attracted, and she also knew that he was not attracted. So this cheat thing is not a cheat thing. Now, how did he handle things at the very end? Yeah, you know what? I can look back and go, do you know what? Maybe there's some things that he probably shouldn't have. If he's gonna, they haven't. If she hasn't said anything about you, probably not say anything about Vest, but not say anything about her too. You know what I mean? If she's keeping your secrets, my Negro, it's probably best to keep your mouth shut. When someone holds my secrets, I don't be start telling tales. You know what I mean? Like if you know if you know we're mutually destructive, I just keep my mouth shut when we're mutually destructive. That's my kind of thing. And I'm looking very handsome as well. But listen, so I think when you're mutually destructive in that place, I personally don't think you should be coming out and saying anything, right? I think there were some, like I said, more questions in regards to maybe the story not being fully told. For instance, when Juan's talking about cooking, and if the truth, of course, I didn't know this information until after because I've only asked her. It would have been great if I could ask him again. But if he's not been honest about the whole story in terms of cooking, that he said it's a love language and then didn't actually let us know that, then this will be dishonest. If again that the cleaning aspect, he didn't let us know that she actually was cleaning and he's being dishonest, then there's more questions to ask. Okay. There's more questions to ask. There's more questions to ask in that space. I think also with Juan, I think Juan obviously is a lot more defensive in terms of when I was doing the interviews, how I felt. This is what I'm going to say, how I felt, right? I think Juan was not as open. Like what I've got with Karla versus what I got with Juan, there was a difference in terms of the way that they were not open. Like with Juan, I felt like at times you have to kind of, whether he's doing it on purpose or whether he's not doing it on purpose, that's a question that one you have to ask yourself. But in regards to not answering the question, he doesn't answer it straight. I have to kind of like bring him back to answer the question. Like, hey, let's get back to here. And again, I want to be very fair. After interviewing a lot of people on Ready to Love, I started realizing a lot of people. I'm not saying that this is necessarily one, but a lot of people are neurodivergent. And they actually don't know how to answer. So as much as you might be thinking they might be trying to literally dodge you, I'm also very much more graceful now, knowing that how people deal with neurodivergence, right? So people can go into word salads, people can go into long tails. People hear a question, but they have to add all the extra details into an answer before they answer it. After doing Ready to Love, I've now realized that a lot of people can be neurodivergent. So it will look like someone's being on purposely, like when he's adding the statistics. You might be thinking he's trying to manipulate. He is. I'm not going to say he isn't. He said maybe he is. But that aspect, I started to kind of see that too. So that's another aspect. Also, as well. Sorry. Also, with the situation with Juan and his position, I do feel like, these secrets that he's been holding have done him more damage than anything. He should have just kept quiet. Like, I think, and again, once you have those secrets, it doesn't get mentioned because you have done your end of the bargain. You know what I'm saying to you? By keeping your mouth shut. You feel free to say it, but you just gotta remember, that, hey, if you got secrets and someone's holding your secrets, you just gotta be chill. That's what I'm saying. You just gotta be a little bit more chill. That's all I'm saying. Like, if I know someone's got my secrets, you holding my secrets, and we holding each other's secrets, I'm not trying to say too much. You know, I'm not trying to say too much personally. So, in that aspect. So yeah, that was my perspective on that. And then I think, in regards to accountability, there was two different styles of accountability here, right? Now, I want to be fair. Karla, actually, I sent Karla the interview and then my review of the interview. She actually watched the interview review of what we spoke about, me, Seaway, and Sean. So, you know what I'm saying to you? I'm not taking away any points on Karla. I'm just saying. So she knew that I was about that, and I respect the fact that she actually did her homework and went and did accountability. Now, Juan, he didn't do the accountability aspect. I have to be fair. I do have to be fair. Juan did not do the accountability on this aspect. Anytime you was asking him to take accountability, he'd be like, "Yeah, I know that," and then he'll be like, "Dumb." And you can't really go with that. There was no real explanation of where your understanding is, what you're really deeping, what you're, going back to that place where you fully break things down and understand the psychological aspect. You know what I'm saying to you? So in that aspect, I felt like Juan just needed to do a bit more work. We saw how Karla took accountability beautifully, and I'm never gonna be mad at it, bro. I'm never gonna be mad at it because always I ask people when they come on this thing, be accountable. So I have to give major brownie points to Karla. Whether I agree with everything that she said doesn't make a difference. It is the fact that she was able to take stock of her experience and give me an accountable experience of where she knew that she could have done something better. And that for me is 100 points on the board. Always. Always. Because we always ask people to reflect and be self-aware. She didn't cut me off to prove a point. She didn't. I'm not saying Wine did this, by the way. So I'm just saying she never cut me off to prove a point. She never had to like, when you start saying something like, "Oh my god," like no, none of that stuff needs to happen. She was willing to take accountability. She was willing to see where she could have gone wrong. Willing to be more open to those particular perspectives as well. So I appreciate her taking that accountability in that particular space as well. So it was good. It was good that she did that, and she really helped a lot of people, I believe, as well, seeing those things. Is there something deeper? I think there is. I think well, Juan and her have something deeper. I think the experts were absolutely right to put them together. Absolutely right. It's just the problem is they both have an attraction issue, which is first and foremost, he likes a certain type of woman, a triathlete. I don't know what that means, and she likes Europeans. So to be honest, these are two that didn't like her. She might have been a bit more open to trying to make it work, but they both settled on friendship. Fine. Um, but what was interesting is the same spirituality aspect, right? So I know Juan said obviously he didn't want to choose her because of spirituality, which is fair because obviously everybody's spirituality looks different. Um, um, you know, and which is absolutely fair. Um, and I think the spirituality aspect that they were much more aligned than they actually thought they were, right? I think they are. Um, I think the reality of the situation is that she spoke. The only thing, and I didn't want to challenge her because I said it was not important to challenge her. It's something that I can talk about after. Both of them, Christ does not align. I'm sorry. Christ does not align with either of them. The perspective that they gave would not be a Christian perspective at all. Do you know what I'm saying to you? As a gospel centered viewpoint, both of them were not aligned with the gospel perspective. So them saying they believe in God, would not, from a Christian perspective, would not align. So that was like something I noticed. I said, oh, they both are kind of agree with that particular perspective. They both have a, um, you know, I think they both could have worked in that particular aspect. And then the idea behind the passive aggressiveness or maybe the lies per se. So, for instance, when she came and told him about the job, he did omit some information in that respect. Like, for instance, when he not tell us the whole story. Like, oh, she did tell him beforehand, and he knew or whatever. And then yeah, not telling us the full story about that. When he explained it, that for me is omission. And when you're omitting, you're kind of not you're kind of narrating the story in a particular way. You know what I'm saying? Too, you start narrating the story in a certain way. So that was my biggest thing. Them being friends after the show. I mean, she obviously realized that after a little while, this wasn't going to be a friendship that's going to work. After he said what he said, and I think that's a massive thing. In that space, I think she's right to pull back. I've always said this as well. Like, I don't know why you're going to be friends if it didn't work out, but you know, the pullback is necessary. I think protecting herself and stuff. So, yeah, no, listen, I'm a bit tired, so that's why I'm not able to give you guys a full thing. That's why I said I ain't got the energy today, but maybe tomorrow I'll be able to give you guys a proper roundup. But I'll get some people on the panel to come and share their perspective because today the energy's out of me. I don't know what it is, but I feel like I just need to rest up again, get myself reacquainted. We've got Alan on Friday as well, so we'll discuss that too. I'm not sure. Hopefully I'll be able to round up the rest of the Married at First Sight people. You guys are witnessing how God is working. I'm just going to take this down because for years I have been trying. When I say I've been trying and I've been getting close, and every time it would fall at last minute. So you're witnessing God working, okay? But let me get some panelists on. I know the rest of Seaway and Sean. Listen, I'm going to be honest with you. We're here for an hour. I've got an hour and I'm not going any further. So if someone Seaway don't come here on time, I'm going to go. I'm tired. Okay, I'm going to sleep. My eye is twitching. I can feel my eye twitching in the corner. And that's telling me I gotta go to bed. You know what I mean? So let me get Easton and El Sidon. I'm sure Seaway and Sean will definitely.
Look, if they ain't here, they ain't here. That's how it be sometimes.
Easton, come on. Now what?
They're gonna turn up. Trust me.
1 hour from when you started, or 1 hour from now?
Oh no! We're 12 minutes in, so we've got 38 minutes. Get your thoughts in, because my eye is twitching and it's hurting right now. I can feel it burning. What's your guys' perspective? I want to hear you guys' thoughts and stuff. So
I'll let Elsie go first.
What I heard is that both Karla and Juan lied to us on the show. That's what I heard. They both lied. Okay. This is not Married at First Friendship. This is Married at First Sight. There was no marriage to be had after a certain point. So, yeah, I'm not sure when he said that he was not attracted or when they decided on a friendship, but it had to be after the "you forgot about Karla." Because if someone tells me they ain't about me and they really, ain't about this marriage, I ain't clocking for you. And I don't care if you forgot about me. So it had to be after they moved in or something. So I heard they both lied to our face. And we usually on this channel roast people who are not going through the whole marriage process as a marriage. Now, the deacon usually does that. And what I would love for the deacon to come on here, because we roast people who are playing in our face and don't have a real marriage. Like we roasted Ikechi, we roasted MM on just this season. So again, I mean, they both played in our face. Does Karla have a better packaging and she seems more open? Heck yeah. Heck yeah. She is the spoonful of sugar to help the medicine go down. Okay? Now, Ike, and the other cast of characters we don't like, yeah, they're not packaged properly, but I think sometimes we need to hear and listen. I appreciated that interview with Juan. I don't know if it's neurodivergent, but I totally understand now how he thinks. Do I appreciate his behavior? Heck no. Juan got a lot of explaining to do. Juan got a lot of behavior traits he got to kind of buckle up on, but I now understand how he thinks, and I now understand how he moves. He's got stuff he needs to work on. But we roast people. We roast people who come in here and try to sell us it's a marriage when it's not.
Easton, and then Sean.
For those who are expecting me to apologize, ain't no apology coming today. Because from listening to both of them talk, both of them are telling half truths and a whole bunch of lies. Particularly with the dynamics of their relationship. That's one. Two, I think that, like Elsie was saying, Karla has a way better packaging, and also she's just a lot more. She's a lot more together, and she's a little bit more calibrated, so it comes across a lot smoother. But I'm not going to deviate from what I also saw on TV. Like we don't do that for everybody. What we saw on TV, I'm very hard pressed to think that Kinetics is just going to be editing Karla, who is somebody who has a lot of likability, who's attractive, who has a good spirit about her, to be this no good bad person. I think that there's a little bit of truth in what Juan was saying, and there's a little bit of truth in what Karla was saying, and the particular parts of truth that I feel like it's like an argument with your sibling, like maybe you the big brother or the little brother, and the big brother kind of observes everything, and he or she might say like, oh, so and so doesn't do this and this, and then you the little brother, and I do this because I know the name of the game. I'll pick the one time that I do something, the time I do pick up the toys or wash the dishes or I wake up on time. I am hard pressed to think that Juan is just lying and dragging Karla's name through the mud, especially because we have times within the show where they could have said or shown otherwise differently. They could have corrected this, or there could have been times where we could have lent on that. But I'll land it there. I just think that they're both trying. Karla obviously has a lot of fans, and so it doesn't come across really, really hard for her to be likable or for people to lean into her position. And Juan isn't very likable, and he's a little bit disheveled. So yeah, that's where I think it is.
Yep, go for it, Sean.
Yeah, I think it depends on, the approach that you have when you watch these interviews. And I think one of the things I've learned in watching your interviews through the years, Kojo, is that to try to come through it with a what's called the tabula rasa, like a blank slate, um, and give the person a chance to tell their story. So when I listened to both Juan and Karla's interview, I tried to do that as best as I could and remove my biases to really hear their story. I did get some insight on Juan, and it just helped me to understand his protective nature and why he looks to perhaps control narratives and who he is. I don't think he's a bad person. So perhaps maybe, some of the feelings I had about him that were on the stronger side, maybe they're a little lesser because I don't think he's a bad person. I just kind of walked away with feeling like he's somebody whose image, who he is, his reputation is very important. And he's going to do some things to protect that. Some of those things I don't necessarily agree with, but that's just how he navigates life with the way he, how he operates. For Karla, I can't say I was like shocked, but I was able to just hear a little bit of her story, get some things cleared up that weren't really cleared up. The thing that I definitely liked about her interview versus his is she really took the tools that she learned and she was able to talk about them. I could tell that she was being vulnerable and open to your questions, and that part I liked. She was authentic, and to herself. I think she was unapologetic about who she is. And I like that, like, self-assuredness in people. Like I like it, to just be able to say who you are, to be comfortable and confident no matter what people are saying about you or narratives that are out there. You're just going to talk, your truth and, just be who you are. So I really like that about her. There was a lightness to her interview that really was appealing, and I think refreshing. So yeah, those are my initial thoughts.
Yeah, and I do feel like obviously where Juan needs to, well, I think he owes her. Like I said, for me personally, the rules are: if you hold my secret, I don't out you. That's just how I roll. Okay, I live in a land of if you hold my secret, this is a bit, maybe it's dark arts. The dark arts is if you hold in my secret, I'm not about to out you. So now going back to that comment that he made on It's Two podcast, I get that he might have been feeling like he needed to share some things, but for me personally, you're holding my secrets. My thing is keep quiet. That's just this is how I roll. You know what I mean? Like I don't need to say anything like that. I'll be like, hey, we just didn't work out, and I keep it moving. You know what I mean? Because you holding some of my secrets, and I can tell those secrets mean a lot to you because you coming out talking about lawyers, talking about all this kind of stuff. So it's very important to you. So where I feel that Juan has let himself down is that in that space, like there is honor amongst thieves. So if I'm on a dark path and I'm doing some dark stuff, you know what I'm saying to you, and you doing some dark stuff, I'm not about to bring you out. Do you know what I'm saying to you? So for me personally, that's where I feel like Juan has let himself down in this area as a behavior for me personally. I don't think he's a bad person, but I do feel like it's a bad move and it's a bad behavior to out somebody when you yourself have secrets that they're holding and they're still holding. You know what I'm saying to you? Like that is where I'm looking at going, come on, Juan, like that, whether you like Karla or not, whether Karla is your bestie anymore, bro, at that point, the loyalty has to be with the person who has held your secrets and is not releasing. And that for me is a problem. That's one of the biggest problems for me. I think Juan is more passive aggressive than he would like to admit. He's very passive aggressive because if you have to wait till after the show to tell everything that happened on the show that you felt about, and I'm not saying that everything that he didn't say, there were some things he said on the show, he did, but there were aspects where you were withheld what your thoughts were, and you said it in the confessionals. Then for me, I get that you said it on the show, but you said it in the confessionals. Now the person has to see it after. That's passive aggressive. So the very thing you labeled against her, that's what you did. So in that instance, I think that's where Juan can be like, hey, look, you know what? That's where I made it. Like I would have wanted him to come out with that ownership himself. That's what I'm saying to you. Like in that sense, come out and say like, hey, look, you know what? When you look back at the situation, you know what? I see where I went wrong. You know what I mean? Like I was passive aggressive. I should have been honest in the very beginning. You know, I made a mistake of saying those things. I was under the cosh, you know, being honest, I was under the cosh. I felt pressured, you know what I'm saying to you? And it wasn't as clean as I know the show was seeing it as, but you know, I got pressured and that's my mistake. And you offer an apology to Karla, you know what I'm saying to you? So for me personally, I just don't think you need to be exposing people. I don't think you need to expose their secrets when you got secrets, you know? Yes, I'll sit.
I hope this does not mean people going on to maps thinks they need to be, telling their secrets. I mean, for all intents and purposes, you are marrying a stranger on that day. So my thought is that Juan is basically kicking himself. As he said, nobody instigated, nobody pushed anybody to do something they didn't want to do. I think he's kicking himself as to sharing or agreeing to share, and Karla was a stranger. But again, at least he got grace with Karla, because the other groom that was telling all his secrets and all his business didn't get that same grace at all. So I just hope people who are going for this show again understand that stuff will come out. This grace isn't extended to everybody. Every groom, every bride isn't going to hold secrets for you. But I agree with you, Kojo. If you're going to ask someone to hold water, you better have the shoulders to carry water just as much. You got to, or else the trust is gone. But my thing is, why stay and prolong this for 8 weeks? Y'all knew it wasn't going to be anything. Just depart and save us all.
Quick question, Kojo. So, because I guess your qualms with Juan, so are you assuming that everything that you see or that that is revealed to us on the show, you take that as face value, or are you using and implementing what you hear on the interviews and kind of reiterating that?
Oh, I'm saying what he's actually said. So when he said on It's Two podcast what the issue was with Karla, I'm saying that we now know he has secrets. He told Karla some secrets, and she's holding those secrets. So taking the show aside, the fact that you have secrets and someone is holding it, and then you exposing them by saying what was wrong with what was the reason why you didn't want to marry them or whatever, you wanted to stay together when they haven't spoken about it. That's what I'm saying. So nothing to do with the show. This is simply outside the show. That for me is a problem. Like if I'm holding your secrets and you holding my secrets, right? I'm not trying to damage the relationship we have. Like, you know what I'm saying? We can amicably separate, but I don't need to expose you in any way. There's no need.
No, I agree partially, but the big thing that I've heard from everybody on the panel is that Juan never gave us a reason or gave us clarity as to why he didn't go with Karla. Everybody was upset, like he didn't try. I didn't see, me personally, I didn't see his comments under It Takes Two as him telling secrets, because some of us were saying that she was X, Y, and Z. So I felt like this was very public and very present within the show. Whereas whatever the secret may be, I don't know. I have my own speculations, but that's not for me to say right now. I really don't care at this point. But I felt like that if it wasn't shown on the show, then it's off limits. It's like if we're talking about the family stuff, if they're not shown on the show, if they're not publicized, it's off limits. The kids are off limits, whatever it may be behind closed doors. But once it comes present on the show and people are able to make their own judgments and have their own opinions about it, then I think that is a completely different thing. And so with how he characterized Karla, a lot of that stuff was present on the show. It was just a little bit more fleshed out and explained by Juan, but maybe I see it differently.
Go for it, Sean.
Yeah, I'm not. I just struggle with these conversations because I think it's hard for people to pivot, you know? So I'm likely not to pivot. Easton's likely not to pivot, and nor is Elsit or anybody else once you're kind of dug in on what you believe. So I'm just trying to take a note from Karla and, just breathe, think about my comments before I respond, not engage in unnecessary back and forth about things that I think are really futile. So I think that one of my main issues with Juan is not just that he felt the need to defend himself against the narrative. It was the way he went about that. And it was the need to talk negatively about Karla to defend, quote unquote, why he didn't like her, or defend against the narrative of that he didn't really go into the process earnestly. I think that somebody's character is shown when you're defending yourself, but you make it about somebody else. You know what I'm saying? Like if somebody says to me, Sean, you don't work hard on Kojo's platform, right? I'm going to list the things that I do on Kojo's platform, right? I'm going to talk about the things that I do on his platform. I'm not going to speak negatively about Kojo. Well, Kojo barely gives me an opportunity to speak, and I only have 5 minutes to talk. And the last time he asked me a question, he really cut me off brutally, right? And I feel like that's what Juan did in his response, where he could have said, hey, listen, there were a lot of things that you didn't see behind the scenes. There were activities that I participated in with Karla. I genuinely tried. I think she's a nice person, but we're just not a good fit. Not I'm going to assassinate her character or try to bring up all the negative things. She don't cook, she don't clean, like that to me speaks more about you. And then fast forward to the interview that you had with him, it seemed as though that was his response for every question that he was asked. He deflected. He started talking about Karla unprompted. He started talking about his girlfriend in Brazil. So that shows to me, when I see that somebody that doesn't want to get deep. They don't want to be vulnerable for whatever reason. And look, everybody can do what they want to do, but I interpret somebody's actions when you are asked a direct question and you deflect, you circle the drain. It tells me you don't want to answer the question for some reason. Now, I can't guess the reason, but sometimes we fill in the gaps, but you don't want to answer the question. So I think Juan did a lot of that. And it just shows his lack of vulnerability. And I think those of us who felt like he was not open to the process felt and sensed that. Some people, they didn't see it, so that's not something they could agree to. But I think that's what a lot of us saw, was him deflecting, him overly trying to glaze over certain situations, him not really being open to certain activities with her. You know, so those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, listen, like I said, I think I would have wanted him to be a bit more honest, not well, a bit more accountable. You know what I mean? I just think that's what I wanted to see more accountability from him in terms of what his behaviors would have provided for the show, provided for the situation, right? Because I think at certain points, you know, he would say, I don't know if you've ever done it this way. Someone goes, "I'm sorry, I take accountability," but they never really explain what they're taking accountability for. It's like, so then naturally there's nowhere to go with the conversation because they said I took accountability. So it's like you're almost looking like you're nagging by asking them to explain it a bit more. So I think that's what I would have wanted to see from him more. You know, I sometimes had to get him back on track just to be able to ask questions. I think he would go off on a tangent, and I think, and that again, I really do believe that is also a part of the neurodivergence he potentially may have. And the reason why I say that is because it's not smooth. If you listen to the way he deflects, it's actually not very smooth. So for it's like, I remember when I interviewed AJ from Ready to Love, it's the same way. It's like when I ask him a question, he goes on a complete tangent from what was actually said. And I'm like, where is he going? And I felt the same way. I felt a little bit the same way with Juan, where he, and again, this is not an excuse. I'm only explaining what I'm seeing. So by the way, I'm not excusing the behavior. I'm saying what I saw. For instance, bringing up statistics to prove your point in the midst of a conversation which had nothing to do with statistics. It didn't need statistics. Like, for instance, when he's proven that the statistics when it comes to how many relationships fail, we don't need to know that. It's not important to the conversation. You know what I'm saying, Chu? That's when I started thinking, oh, there may be some neurodivergence to this because the statistics have nothing to do with this conversation. Now, he may be very clever. He may be very, very clever and maybe very much deflecting and, you know, trying to spin me and manipulate me in that particular way. It's just the way he kind of did it. I was like, this is the word. Now, when I was looking at neurodivergence a couple of years ago, this is the word salad kind of where you kind of like, you take someone on a merry-go-round to get back to the point you're coming on. And you're like, at the end of it, you're like, damn, did they actually answer the question? You know what I mean? And I had to keep on answering, like, yo, answer this question. So I think that also plays into his rigidity, right? But that doesn't give an excuse. Like I said, doesn't give an excuse for the lack of loyalty that he showed when it came to the secrets. Doesn't give an excuse. I am wondering about this lawyer situation. You know, in terms of what it is now, because you know, and I wonder if he was explaining two different things. But the NDA situation, as she said, like they don't necessarily have an NDA in that particular regard. In regards to telling stuff, I think he meant more or less his secrets thing. So if they had saying, but it sounds like production weren't trying to obey that anyway, because at this point they had Karla saying that she could have said it. So I don't know, there's something else in there as well. So yeah, I just think he just needed to be a bit more accountable on those things. I said, go for it.
For me, my square hasn't moved that much. It's more in a sense of how they both think and present, apart from what the produced show was. So while I understand, Easton, when you're saying we are going based on what we're presented, yes. But once Kojo gets an interview or we see more exposure of the person in the raw, it could kind of fill in the blanks. It really tells us, oh, production got them on point, or it tells us some manipulation and finagling was happening here. Because we know production is slicing, dicing everything. My thing is that, my thing with Karla, and I will say this as constructive as I can be, she allowed them to basically use her in this fashion. Like, she showed us that she was present when she was filming him, when he's saying she, you know, was still abed, or she wasn't doing anything, or said the lazy word. That's the boundary you need to speak up. I would stop that camera, turn it around, and everything. That she allowed them in these spaces to use her or have footage that could be manipulated in such a fashion. I'm not going to giggle and laugh if you're tainting how I'm presenting, because as he's saying he doesn't want to be tainted because he's a business person, she's also a business person. So my thing with her is like, these are the pieces where don't allow these people to be slicing and dicing and using these things and present you in a certain manner. Yes, y'all may be saying, oh, she, presented well or whatever. But again, Juan decided to talk about all these things behind the camera. And my thing with this, he say, she say, and some of the things, I don't have proof for either one of them. So with all of us, we're making a choice as to who we're going to believe. All of them, we're making a choice. And for some things, I believe Karla. For some things, I believe Juan. And a lot of things, production and the experts played in our face about the both of them. Because there's no way they, knowing this is a friendship and not a marriage, should they have continued this all the way for 8 weeks. And Kojo, the only question I would have asked you to ask her is, does she still stand on, was this the healthiest relationship she's had, and in what regard was this the healthiest? Because it could be the healthiest friendship, and that's what I'm thinking. But I didn't get clarity from that with her interviews. But I would say that, with all of our judgments here, it is based on the show, and it's also based on the interviews that luckily and Kojo is getting right now.
When I find things interesting, I find them interesting. I found it interesting that all season we were upset with Easton for police and how people responded to how they were treated, or how they were portrayed, or how things may have happened to them in the case of Amem and Alan. Because I told them, hey, you shouldn't do X, Y, and Z, and I got drugged through the mud for policing. But now we're seeming like we're policing how Juan wants to respond after people are getting on his case about their favorite Karla. I just find that ironic, because how I portrayed this season was, I try to take it by week and what people did right and what people did wrong. And we know that Sean in the beginning and Seaway were right about David. I was like, oh, David, da-da-da. And we find out a couple episodes later, I was wrong. Boom, I was wrong. With Juan, I don't understand, outside of like the interviews and stuff like that, I don't understand how we should necessarily interact, or how a man should interact on a show like this. Because if you tell her that you don't like her and you try to play nice, everybody's mad at you that you didn't give her a chance, and they're upset with you. Because that, to me, that's what it seemed like the most issues from the comments that I've read, the videos that I've watched, and I watched quite a few, were that people were upset that Juan didn't take the process seriously. Even some of my colleagues, the panelists, they said the exact same things, that he didn't take it seriously, and how people may have, I will say, attacked, regardless of the secret, regardless of the interviews. I think the initial anger and vitriol towards Juan was because of how he presented to Karla. Now, I don't know how you're supposed to act, because if he would have ended up sleeping with her or ringing her along, then he would have been Clay. If he plays the nice guy and tries to keep everything copacetic and sweet, then he didn't give her a chance, and everybody doesn't like him for that. So I don't really know how you should act. And that's maybe why I am a little bit more empathetic towards Juan's position. Although he did lie, although he did not come across the best in the interviews, and Kojo did an amazing job of pressing him, I just don't know how what do you do? Because you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. You're gonna get killed in the comments. You might get your Amazon book 1-star reviews or businesses. I mean, we've seen it with Clay. We've seen it with all contestants, that they'll get reviews and different things added on to their business because people on off the show don't like what they did to their favorite on the show. And so I'm pushing this back to maybe the panel, because again, maybe he was upset at the time, or he was at capacity of dealing with a lot of what people were saying, as to he never gave a reason why. And maybe he gave his reason why on the response to It Takes Two, and that kind of got the ball rolling. But he did fumble. He did make a huge mistake, because she has a secret, and that's it.
Listen, well, I'll be honest with you. yeah, look, I think Juan did a great job in handling the show. I think there were other aspects that were problematic, right? So I think handling the show, I think there was a lot of pushback in terms of Juan's not being serious about the marriage. They both weren't, and that's just the honest truth I see for both of them, which is that once they both realized they weren't attracted to each other, there is no marriage after that. Like there wasn't. So like at that aspect, they both weren't actually able to really progress in the marriage because both of them didn't fancy each other. Now we can talk about Juan, and I'll highlight and say there are things that Juan did and things that Juan said were not going to be helpful or conducive in terms of building even just a friendship aspect. So take that aside. But they both stated very early on, and there was a lot of narrative around this. There was a lot of narrative around the fact that people felt that Juan robbed Karla. I want to agree. He didn't rob her. If I come and tell you that I'm not attracted to you and let's be friends, after that, we are both friends. That's it. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing I can do about my attraction towards you. I can't change that. So I think that for that part, I will back Juan on that. That I think he handled that part correctly. He had a conversation early. He told her how he felt. Now she could have told him that she likes Europeans, but she didn't. That's cool. But that was something I will have to back him on that. There's some other stuff though. You know what I mean? But on that one, I will give him that one. I will back him on that because there was pushback on that particular aspect. So I do understand that. But yeah, I would have yes, for that part, I think he did her solid in that respect. But there was other parts where he kind of, unraveled her cloth, as one to say. You know what I mean? But yeah, go for it, Sean.
Yeah, I guess my whole sentiment about it is that I feel like by watching Juan on the screen, he was a very surface level person, and he didn't go into the process with an open mind and trying to get to know her in any facet. I don't think that once the romance failed, he didn't even do a good job at being a friend of hers, because he said certain things to her face and then did other things behind the scenes. Making that accusation that she didn't get up till 8 o'clock. 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Meanwhile, she was awake and also filming him, whilst he was doing that. And then when she confronted him about it after she saw it on TV, he said, "Oh, I forgot about that." I think those are just examples of somebody that throws a rock and hides their hand. I think he wanted to shore up his image. I think what I saw in Juan was somebody that was more concerned about how he came off than how he participated in the Married at First Sight process. Those are my general thoughts. I don't necessarily say he robbed her. I mean, it doesn't have to be like the end of the world, but I just don't feel like he came on here with true intentions. And even when you asked him, Kojo, why he came on Maths, he talked about 1,000,001 other things and threw his girlfriend in there. He never said, "I came to be married. I really wanted to be married, and this was my chance at doing so." You even complimented him in softball, the question to say, "Hey, you're a good-looking guy. You probably have tons of options. Why come on Maths?" And we never got a valid answer for why he came on Maths. So that is what I generally saw from him. Now, if somebody wants to make that a villain, I don't really care. I hate the, polarizing language, because then everybody has to pick a side, and then we waste time arguing about things that I think are really futile. Why they didn't leave? El said, we've seen plenty of people on Married at First Sight for full 8 weeks, and they walk away and don't wind up together. To me, that's not I never harp on that. Now, if somebody does something egregious, like how Ike was treating Mem and things like that, yes. But Juan and Karla, that was never their interaction. They were actually respectful with each other. So I don't think there was a need to necessarily walk off. You guys are getting along. You're having a good time. Go through the 8 weeks. You're already committed. You're already committed. The paperwork is already signed. Why not? I don't see any harm in that. To me, that argument about them leaving, sure, they could have left, but I enjoyed watching them. I actually enjoyed getting to see their interactions. I did. They were some of the lightness in the show, because some of the other things that were happening were a little bit, for me, dark. So, I enjoyed seeing them for the 8 weeks, whether they decided to say yes or not.
Did you want to respond, Sid?
I think the Deacon is changing his tune, because I have been here before hearing him roast people about lying to us, the audience, or being in there for the wrong reason. So,
bingo.
We are allowed to change and grow. So I will allow this change and growth. I just don't like it. I don't like it at all. This is not married at first friendship. It is a marriage. We keep harping on this is a marriage. I heard several panelists say this is a marriage. So if this is a marriage and y'all do not wish to stay in this marriage, you could go down the street, ask for a divorce at any time. And I would not stay there if someone is lying on me saying I'm sleeping till 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm not going to do that. I'm sorry, not for any level of production or any level of however much. I'm sorry. I don't care that I don't have an apartment. I'll get a lease and have my stuff out of storage and move it along. Because it's not, everybody's harping out, Juan is lying on Karla. Production is pushing this lie on Karla. And she stayed there. And I was like, girl, just leave. Just leave. I wish you would have just left this, I wish Juan would have picked up that, poncho and plastic bag and left. If you are not here for a marriage anymore, leave. Do us all a favor and leave. This is just harping it out for 8 weeks. And while Sean says it's wonderful, it was a light at the, within the midst of all of this, I just think it was just a lie. Just go along. Just leave. This is not going to develop into romance. It's not going to develop in a marriage. You know what? Start the process early. Let's get a divorce.
I just want to clarify real quick. I have never said every person that is in a match should leave. So I'm not changing my tune. I do think, and I said it in my first statement, that there are reasons that someone should leave immediately. Like in the instance of Amendment Akeche, those are instances where you're being treated very horribly and you should walk away. Anyone else? I think there's nothing wrong with going through it. You walk away with things. I think that's one of the positives that I took away from Karla's interview. Like when she summarized, she was able to say some positive things that she learned from Juan, some things that helped her in business, helped her in life. So I think although there's going to be negatives in things, I think the best person takes mistakes, takes things that didn't work out the way they thought, and then figure out how they can learn from it, how they can pivot. What are those lessons? None of us are going to do everything perfectly. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't imagine that I'm going to be put on a reality show and I'm going to do everything the right way and I'm going to tell production and I'm going to be displayed the right way. It just doesn't work that way. It's not real life. You can't orchestrate every second, every moment of your life to be perfect. But what you can do, and I think the thing that I liked about Karla was she takes some of those missteps and things that happen, and then she's like, okay, I can learn from that. I can do better from that. And these are the lessons, and these are the things that I'm going to do better going forward. To me, I like that. I like those traits in people. I like people who can learn from mistakes and, and be able to own their stuff when they do it. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, I definitely like that as well. I think, like I said, I was impressed with Karla taking accountability. That's something, like I said, whether you believe it or not, I appreciate accountability. You know what I'm saying? True, for me personally, just shows a level of high functioning, shows a level of self-awareness for me. And there's nothing anyone can say to you after you've taken accountability. I've always said this. Once you take accountability, we are left with, well, there's nothing else we can say. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing to push, there's nothing to attack in that particular space. And so, for her to round up and give the accountability in the way she did, I was impressed. I was very much impressed with that, because it's not often you do. Men and women come on this platform and will tell us tall tales. You know what I mean? There are more Wans that I get than I would ever get Karlas. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm going to be honest with you, in terms of accountability. So I have to really give her some props for that, in that particular space as well, and understand that. So I think just looking at the behaviors, like I said, I can see with Karla that she had thought about it, she sat with it, she understood it, and then she was able to present it in a particular way. And I think that was brilliant. I think I have to commend her on that, and give her major props on that. And if I was to look at it from a relationship standpoint, I would look at two people, be like, well, someone has grown and the other person doesn't seem to have necessarily grown as much, because they've not been able to be as accountable into what they've actually done. They've just literally gone into a relationship and said the other person's better, but haven't really expressed what they could have done better in this situation. And that's not to say that one has to take accountability for every single thing that he thinks he did not do wrong, but it's about the things where that you could have done better. You have to come out and say that. Things that you could have done differently, you got to come out and say that. You know what I'm saying too? So I think he should have definitely come out and said that. Yes, Easton.
I agree. The more I listen to this, the more apparent it is that Juan was really all over the place. Super defensive, but to me, I'm starting to appreciate Karla's accountability that she had, because she could have been on the back foot, kind of like Juan was, and been a tad bit more assertive with her points, or I won't say assertive, but definitely a little bit more defensive in how she postured the narrative around her and stuff like that. I just, maybe from my lens, I'm trying to see how Juan got here, because to me it seemed like a no-brainer as to why he should be quiet and he shouldn't try to drag Karla under the bus, but made whatever he was getting from the feedback or the comments got to him enough to where he did feel like he needed to drag her through the mud to save himself. And that's maybe what I'm a little bit more interested in, is like the psychology behind why he got to the place that he got to, because for the most part, he did everything that, if you was a dude on any of these reality shows and you want to keep clean sweep and don't want to have too much mud on your hands or blood, Juan did it. He didn't really do too much to give you a lot of ammunition to use against him. But I hope that Juan learns from this. You should have just stayed in your corner, because for the most part, you're not gonna have everybody like you. And I think that was the issue, and that's what ended up making you bury yourself in this drama, because if he never said anything, Phil would have still called her all these other things. I would have been like, yup. And I would have been like, look, see, you can look at these episodes where they edited it and it showed her this. But now we have to be more critical of you, Juan, as well as, he just doesn't look good for you. It doesn't look good for you. And shout out to Karla. I will give her those props for the accountability. But I do think that there was some truth that what Juan did say with some of the stuff.
Last few points. Did you want to add anything, Sean?
No. Listen, I've learned a win is a win. So that I don't want to take anything away from that. I think that was a great summation. So I'll leave it at that.
Definitely a win is a win. I can't lie to you on that part. I do think, like I said, I think for Juan, if he watches back, what I would say is, number one, for instance, the blackmailing situation, right? Before he launched into the blackmailing situation, which I understood, I get that and again, because he's a fit, and this is okay. So I'm going to say something that might be a little bit wild. So I actually understood what he was saying. I just wished it packaged differently. And the reason why it's going to have to package differently is because as a man, you won't get the same leeway here. So when he said that I could tell my truth, but I felt like I couldn't because they were saying they're going to hold this secret over my head, I can understand the fear. So that fear then means that you feel like you can't say what you got to say. But the counterfutive argument to that is, Negro, you ain't got to say nothing. That's the whole point. You've got secrets. So you're not supposed to say anything. That's the whole point. You know what I'm saying to you? Like, I totally understood what you said about, feeling like you're being blackmailed in a sense, because blackmail does not mean I have to actually necessarily issue what's going to happen to you. Simply by saying, what secrets have you got, can feel like a blackmail, because it's like, I can't actually say what I'm going to say. It can feel like you're being manipulated. So I got it. But at that point, you have secrets on the other side. Shut it. Keep quiet. Stop talking. You know what I'm saying to you? Take the L's. It's not even an L. You know what I'm saying? Take the lessons. You know what I'm saying to you? And move. Because you like Easton had just said, you had done your job. You got through quite cleanly. Yeah, there's some of us who are saying they may not agree with you or whatever, but that's fine. You know what I'm saying to you? Because you got through quite clean. But the moment you spoke up, all hell actually then broke loose. And then you didn't finish speaking up, because then you added another video and then another video. And it's like, bro, as you keep talking more, we're getting more ammunition. You know what I'm saying? To like, we now have to vacate our position of defense, because now you're talking and we're seeing that you actually aren't as clean as you're saying you are. You know what I'm saying to you? This was perfectly performed if you wanted to keep it as it was. Sorry, yeah, go for it, Sean. You want to add?
Yeah, take this for what you will. Hopefully anybody that really likes Juan doesn't take this offensively, but I think it's the best expression to kind of display my point is they always say the criminal returns to the scene of the crime, right? And I don't mean Juan is a criminal, but what I'm saying is, when someone feels like they have something to prove or they need to do something, they're always going to circle the drain, and then not circle the drain, but they're always going to keep coming back to it, because it's us, the people that are on the outside, on the perimeter watching, that feel like, hey, you got off clean. But if you have a narrative that you feel, you're going to continue to defend that, and I'll use my own self as example, right? Like in some of the comments, in previous weeks, and we addressed that when we did the review of Karla's interview with Positively Uncensored, right? There was some negative feedback that I got in there. It wasn't the majority, right? But there was enough, so I wanted to address it. Now, some people might have said, hey, Sean, most of the people liked you. Most of the people agree with you. But why do you choose to focus and talk to those people that were giving you negative comments and negative feedback? Well, for me, I found it necessary because I wanted to change the narrative, and I also wanted to discourage people from continuing to characterize my behavior in a way that I disagreed with, right? So for Juan, I think for whatever reason, he felt that he was being unfairly mischaracterized. So he needed to continue to dive in to defending himself. Now, unfortunately, sometimes what happens is when you start doing that, you give people more ammunition to think more of the same, especially if you don't come into it with a layer of transparency. And I think that's what we miss from Juan. There isn't a lot of transparency. Sometimes there's manipulation in the way he uses his words or in the way he characterizes a situation. Like he's saying, Karla signed an NDA and that covered the secret, but the NDA was having to do with production and other things, So I think Juan did it because that's what he felt he needed to do, despite what we think. And I don't think that's going to change until Juan digs into, why do I defend myself? Why do I have to do that? Why do I have to talk about other people when I defend myself? Why do I feel like I have to talk about somebody's bad character to defend my good character? So there's somewhere in there, the truth. We don't know it, but for some reason, he feels like he's got to do that.
And listen, on that note, we're going to bring the show to an end. So I love your point there, Sean, because I think, and I know you guys will talk behind the scenes, but I love the point because I was reading scripture just the other day, and something reminded me because of, Elsa said this to me actually a couple of months back, last year actually, when I had the issue with Ready to Love. The last interview I ever did for Ready to Love, which was with Alexis, right? I just felt like that, and And that's what, so I really, so when you just said it, it just reminded me that pain that I felt, I was pissed off because I said, when I look at all the comments on that video, people have never even really watched me categorizing me as X, Y, and Z. So what did I do? I went on my campaign. I got on my campaign. We got 3 videos after. You know what I'm saying? I got to explain my point of view because I know that I'm right in what I'm saying, right? But something else said to me at the time, and I really wasn't trying to hear it. But, you know, that's why the 3 videos came after. She did tell me, Coach, you don't have to defend yourself. Don't worry about it. Like, don't defend yourself. Don't say anything. It's cool. I said, yeah, I hear it. I just couldn't. I was burning. I was burning. I was like, I've been mislabeled, I've been miscategorized, and I've been insulted. And she thinks she gonna get away with it? Oh, no. We gonna find a way. I ain't gonna cuss you out, but I am gonna let you know that this is why you... Do you know what I mean? And then you don't realize you get caught up in trying to defend yourself in that particular moment. And that's the same thing that happened with Juan in that situation. So when you said it, Sean, it was a great expulsion because it was a great explanation of what happens to us sometimes. We have a narrative, and sometimes, and this is our last note, and I'll let you round up, Sean, and give us a benediction, is that the same thing happened to Jesus. They had a narrative. They wanted to paint Jesus as this rebellious person who was going against the Sanhedrin and going against the Sadducees and going against the Jews, right? And so they had to make up this narrative. But the Bible says that they could not find a fault with him. In fact, they even went to get false witnesses, and the false witnesses couldn't even be false. They couldn't even give a good false witness, right? And it got to a point they had to strike him in the mouth, and they would ask him questions. So, what's this truth then? Are you the king of the Jews? And Jesus was like silent. He said, "Whatever you said I am, that's what I am. I'm not about to fight with you." And so something that we're all going to have to learn on this channel, but also we're going back to Juan. I hope he watches this. Shut it. Keep your mouth shut. You actually were winning when you kept your mouth shut. The more you explained, the more we're looking at you as a liability. I've learned that now. I've understood it. You think you're doing yourself a service. All you're doing is crashing out. Like, all you're doing is crashing out. And I crashed out. I had 3 videos lined up, Alexis. I can't even lie to you. I won 3 videos. I said, you're not going to have me looking like a dickhead, right? Not realizing that actually the silence was actually your answer. It would have been the best answer to actually have. You know what I'm saying to you? And allowing the Lord to back you. So let me land it there and let Sean give us a benediction because we out. Well, tell me, I mean, if you guys want to keep talking, Sean can actually dictate the show because I'm going to bed. But Sean can continue it because he has the rights to do so on the channel. But if you've all finished it, Sean, you good? Benediction. All right, Sean, give us a benediction. Give us a benediction.
That's gonna be our theme. A win is a win. So I think, first of all, Kojo, we have to give you your flowers, my good brother. Because your time has come and you are getting your chance to interview the Mavs cast. So we love that. So far, shout out to Juan, shout out to Karla for coming to this channel, coming to this page, and sharing. Some more vulnerable than others, but we thank you for being here and we thank you for the opportunity. We appreciate it because this is a place where we listen and we might judge a little bit, but we don't fully judge, but we do listen. So we appreciate anybody coming through here to learn. I think we learned some key lessons. What you don't heal will be revealed. So if you think you're hiding, it comes to the light. So, be yourself. I think Karla taught us some true lessons. Be authentic, be true. Be true to who you are. Don't be afraid of other people's judgment, but stand firm in what you believe in. We learned some good things from Juan, how to manage a business, how to create ideas. That is important to be able to create and bring things to life. But there are more steps. So I think continue on to let the Lord God hopefully order your steps. And then lastly, I would say for all of us and myself included, whenever we're approaching any situation, relationship, whether we're watching television or reality show, a theory that I find to be helpful is the 5 whys. So if you find yourself stuck at the first why, you haven't dug deep enough. So if you think somebody is doing something, ask why, and then ask another why, and then ask another why, and then another one and another one. You're likely to get to the root cause of it by there, but don't stay at the surface, folks. Dig deep, and as we dig deep, we learn to do better. Back to you, Coach.
Great benediction as always, Sean. Thank you very much. Listen, I think, you know what? I won't even answer that. I think that was powerful breakdown, you know, and in that space. And I appreciate that. Let me read out the super chats before we go. Nola Darling said, Juan's rep isn't who he is. That's the problem. And then Gene D, shout out to Gene D and Nola. They've been contributing a lot on the channel as well. Production should have ended the marriage between Juan and Karla when it was revealed that the marriage was fake. Juan and Karla remained in the marriage for publicity. Juan was always a fraud. So sad. Oh, well, listen, hey, I hear what your perspective is. Shout out to Venetia as well. Is it Venetia or Venetia? You know me, I'm going to pronounce a name in a way that is probably not how you pronounce your name. And she actually put her phonetics in there, and I still messed it up. I still messed it up. Benicia. Shout out to you because I can't read. But I appreciate you as well for joining the membership as well. We're going to be back on Friday night with Juan. No, sorry, with Alan. Sorry, apologies. I said Juan again. Alan. We'll be back with Alan on Friday, 4 p.m. 4 p.m. CST actually. So we'll be back on that as well. So I hope you guys are ready for that as well. And I'm working on the other people as well. So I have spoken to them. So I've spoken to Madison and to David and Camille and Thomas actually as well. I haven't got through to Michelle yet. Maybe she probably just saw our reviews and probably said no. But we're working on them to get them through. Okay, so hopefully by the grace of God we'll be able to interview more of them as well. But I appreciate you guys. Stay locked, stay loaded. Don't do anything I wouldn't do out there. These streets are cold. Okay, so behave.